Are you sure? All right, now we are live. Now we're live. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining me.
Where
this
are we
is
live?
Awesome. YouTube.
On the YouTubes?
On the YouTubes.
Where the kids are?
YouTube.com/FMEO TV.
FMEO TV.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Right. So quick rundown, because we're on a little bit of a tight schedule with one of our guests. We're going to jump right into it. We're not going to do the usual babble on that we do at the beginning and try to be efficient here, which is crazy. That's crazy talk.
You're always efficient, Mike.
But it's good for the listeners. Let's put it that way. They don't have to put up with 30 minutes of whatever we're talking about.
I thought you were going to sing Babylon by the New York Dolls, Mike. I'm kind of disappointed.
I thought we were talking Babylon 5, so I'm completely lost.
Oh, there you go.
And if you joined by Zoom, Allison, set it to speaker view, and this is spotlighted. So what we're sending out to the live stream is what you'll see in the speaker view on Zoom.
So that way I wouldn't have to look at Chuck unless he was talking?
Yeah, exactly.
Do I have to do it that way? What if I want to see Chuck? Can I keep it the 5 view?
No, this is me. So this is me controlling it. So I can,
in Zoom, we'll see
when you spotlight. This is going to be the active speaker view. This is me and the active speaker. And so that's what I wanted to mention as well. So I'm playing with the active speaker view of Ecamm Live, which means that whoever is talking is, of course, going to be in this camera right here. It's pretty good at rejection. In other words, if someone coughs or makes a very brief comment or something, it's not going to automatically switch to them and switch back and switch. It's not going to be bouncing all over the place. In other words, it should stick to one person. But don't be thrown if we switch to speaker view and you start talking. It'll take just a second and then it'll switch to whoever is showing up there. Otherwise, we'll have the five view here. That'll be the other way of doing it. So very, very quick rundown. This is just going to be a fun chat about Macstock weekend. Brian actually came up with the outline for today. He didn't realize it, but when we were sitting down for dinner at Napoli Pizza last Monday, he gave me a few talking points and I said, boom, there's my outline for the show. So, much to his surprise, we're going to lead off with some takeaways from Macstock weekend. And we can talk about favorite presentations if we want to. And then I've got a couple other talking points that Brian came up with. So the way I'm going to do this, we'll do the opening. And this is more for folks who haven't joined us before. We're going to do the opening, little intros, brief intros for each of you. And then I've got a brief intro to the show topic, and then I'm going to throw it over actually first to Allison. So there'll be cues for when we turn it over to each of you, and after Allison, I'll throw it over to each of the others. So that's kind of the gist of it. But you'll hear me throw it over. So. Is there a link to? No, there is not. I'm not as organized as you, Dave. This is just, it's just spur of the moment, off the cuff type discussion. And if you don't have anything to contribute, just say pass. Move it on to the next person. But I have a feeling everybody here is going to have quite a bit to contribute. No idea how long this is going to be. It might be 30 minutes, it might be 45 minutes, it might be an hour. I don't know. We'll just see what we end up with at the end. But just a few talking points and we'll go from there. So, sound cool? Everybody good with that?
Mm-hmm. Go for it.
All right. Awesome. So we are 18:35 in. Excellent. And we will get going. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. It's For Mac Guys Only, episode number 454 for July 19th, 2025. Reaction time, Macstock 9 Rewind. Hey everyone, welcome back to For Mac Guys Only, the show for the Mac community. We share our thoughts and opinions on current Mac news and events. And joining me today for this special Macstock recap episode are celebrating 20 years of podcasting, the host of Nasilicast, Macstock presenter, and, correct me if I'm wrong on this, first-time guest on For Mac Guys Only, Allison Sheridan. Hi, Allison.
I think it is my first time on. Oh, here, my shirt, 20 years. Everybody's going to think from Macstock is going to think these are the only clothes I own, but it's Chuck's fault that I'm wearing this because he complained to me one time that I don't brand myself. So now I'm just like, it's in your face branding. Here's my shirt, 20 years of podcasting.
And same thing with me. I mean, look what I wore at Macstock. I had 2 knit shirts and I had 3 Macstock t-shirts for the weekend. And, you know, everyone thought I was just wearing the same thing every single day. But no, I was changing. I actually had fresh clothes
Great
on every
shirts.
day. Believe it or not.
Great Macstock shirts.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
We can talk about that. But I had a lot of fun designing these this year. This was a blast. This is the final version was actually the, I'll just switch to 5 up here. The final version was actually the 7th iteration of this single design. And there were, I don't know, something like 5 or 6 other designs ahead of it. Maybe some of them will make next year's t-shirt, maybe not, who knows, but chances are it'll be something fresh next year. But next we have educator and frequent guest on For Mac Guys Only, Macstock presenter, host of On the Desk of Brian, and OG, or maybe I should say OGS, Apple user, Brian Flanigan-Arthurs. Howdy, Brian.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, I'm glad you could join us. Nice t-shirt, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I came appropriately dressed.
And it wouldn't be a panel of Macstock presenters without the host of Mac Voices and the spectacular Road to Macstock series each year, Chuck Joyner. Hi, Chuck.
How you doing, Mike? Thanks for having me. This is always fun. I think we all want to just keep Macstock going one way or another.
Yes.
So we just keep talking about it.
Yes, and that may come up in our discussion today. And rounding out the panel of Macstock presenters is frequent contributor to For Mac Guys Only and the host of In Touch with iOS, Dave Ginsburg. Thanks for joining us, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chuck. I'm Chuck. Mike. Thanks for having me. Sorry about that.
Chuck. I can be Chuck.
I'm so used to doing that from live. No, it's great to be here. Thanks. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Yeah, we're going to have some good looking back to what we really had going. It was good at Macstock this year.
I think so too. Yeah. And
And
remember, if you are joining us live on YouTube, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat room. So if you have any questions or comments, be sure to drop them in there, and we will try to address them here on the show. Well, we have been sharing just a bit about Macstock here on the show in the past few weeks, giving little sneak peeks to some of the talks at Macstock as folks like Brian and Marty Gensius have been on to talk about their presentations. And now with Macstock 9 behind us, in fact, it was exactly 1 week ago today, as we record this, that Dave had finished his morning presentation on sharing knowledge with images and videos. Allison was taking the stage at 1 p.m. last Saturday to share her wisdom on unleashing the power of Apple Photos on macOS. And we still had Mac Voices Live and Brian's talk, Automate But Don't Take Shortcuts, to look forward to. But now that Macstock 9 has come to a close, I thought it would be fun to gather a few friends together here on For Mac Guys Only and take a look back at Macstock Weekend and maybe chat a bit about why you may still be hearing so much about Macstock on shows like Mac Voices, In Touch with iOS, Nosilicast, Mac Geek Gab, and others, so many others. And I'm so grateful to everyone who's been spreading the word about Macstock. And if there's time, and if folks are interested, maybe we can cover a little bit of trivia and take a glimpse back at the history of Macstock, because I am betting, I could be wrong, but I'm betting that not one person on the panel today knows the true origins of Macstock as well as when and where the first Macstock, or at least the first Macstock in spirit, was held. Ooh, secrets. But I did want to start with a look back at Macstock 9, which took place just this past weekend, July 11th, 12th, and 13th, and everyone's impressions of the weekend. When Brian and I had dinner together last Monday, post-Macstock, we talked about what a wrap-up episode might look like. We talked about what we could or would talk about that maybe others haven't already said. And the very first thing that Brian mentioned was top 5 takeaways from Macstock weekend. And I think that's because everyone who attends Macstock walks away from the weekend having learned something different. Whether that learning comes from the presentations and workshops, whether it comes from the hallway track, whether it comes from dinner out with friends, or maybe it's just something magical that happened during the weekend that had a profound effect on you. We all have different takeaways. Now, Allison, I'm going to start with you because you just published another amazing wrap-up of Macstock Weekend on podfeet.com. And there is a lot in there that Aunt Edna is sharing with us. The theme this year was share, by the way. But there are a couple things that you always make an effort of pulling me aside at some point during the weekend and sharing with me. But if you had to boil the weekend down to a single takeaway, and you are welcome to do more than one if you want to, if you had to boil it down to a single takeaway, what would it be?
Well, if I have to pick one, this is going to creep everybody out and think this is weird and, what kind of a flower child are you? But love, there's something magical about this conference. There's obviously a lot of learning in every presentation. There's something you can get out of it, whether it's a presentation over your head, maybe a little too low level for you. There's always a tidbit that you can get out of it. You always learn something when you're in the hallway channel that you've got going, Mike. That's a great thing that you do, having 30 minutes in between presentations. So much goes on in the hallway track. Going out to dinner, you learn stuff. You're laughing with people. But this is an inclusive conference where it's just kind. It's got heart. I'm not a hugger in real life. I don't go around hugging my friends all the time. I hugged more people in 3 days than I have in the course of 2 years, probably. And I know that sounds dorky, but it's true. I mean, I even hugged Chuck. That takes a lot, and I think he hugged back a little bit. I mean, he wasn't totally creeped out by it.
Well, let's not go too far, Allison.
A little warm embrace there.
There you go.
Yeah. That's actually a great way to put it, and it probably ties in a little bit with my takeaway from the weekend. But before we move on to the others' takeaways from the weekend, in your email to me, you also mentioned one more thing that you thought was great about Macstock that didn't make the article, or at least I don't remember seeing it in the article. Do you want to share what that was?
Was it the very last one about the food?
I think that might have been it.
So I've been sending Mike little emails of the things that go unnoticed. We talked a little bit about the T-shirts, but we all took the T-shirts out of our bags and went, oh, wow, that's a great T-shirt. Oh, that's really cool. How many people told Mike, hey, that was a really cool T-shirt. I like the design. I like the color. I like the way it fits. It looks really good. You don't think about that. I don't know how much was speaker swag. I suspect this is, but I've got a little AirTag keychain. And if you look really closely, and you can't focus it on this camera, it's also got the Macstock logo imprinted on it, little tiny details like that. And one of the things I wrote back to was about the food. It had to be a conscious choice that we had fresh sandwiches, with vegetables involved and stuff. We still had potato chips and some decadent cookies involved, but it was salads. It was chicken sandwiches. It was, it wasn't heavy pizza, pasta kind of thing. And I appreciate that because it's so easy to just sit in a chair for 3 straight days, maybe have a tipple or two after dinner and eat yourself silly at lunch, that it was an advantage to me to have some healthy food choices. I like that.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the comment on the AirTag holder. That was one of those things as I go through and I try to figure out what would be really cool swag for the year, and I try to come up with something different and unique every year. Those came up as I was doing my searching, and I thought, oh, well, that is just perfect. I love the fact, one, that you could just open them up, that they snap shut. You keep your AirTag secure in there. But to be able to put the logo on it, even though it was a little tinier than I would have preferred, that was the maximum they could make it. That was a great little giveaway for folks who
It was a little surprise.
a little
surprise logo.
That was it. It was a little surprise for folks who took part in the early registration on Thursday. So anyone who came in and registered early, they got
wow.
the AirTag keychain. So or keychain, AirTag holder keychain. Yeah. Say that 10 times fast, Mike. And it was just a little surprise and delight. You know, surprise and delight is something that the Disney company does when you go visit their parks, and surprise and delight is what I like to do at Macstock too. So, yeah. Oh, and the food. Oh my gosh, Allison, the food. That is a thing now every year. You know, the Holiday Inn, when you host a conference at a conference center like that, very often they'll ask you to use their catering services, their in-house catering services. Well, they happen to have a really nice restaurant in-house at the Holiday Inn and the Alara Conference Center. So the menu is quite good. And when you go through and you're making your selections for the year, it's something that Janet and I do, and we spend a lot of time going through and making sure we're not repeating meals, making sure that we're covering people's dietary needs, things like that. One of the things that we wanted to do this year was have a little bit nicer lunch on Sunday to wrap up the weekend. And that's what we did. We did the plated lunch on Sunday.
It felt very elegant and swanky when you did that.
It was swanky. Yes, it was. No, it was just, it was just something a little bit nicer to do for the folks who had spent 3 days with us at Macstock. And
What was it, boxed lunches? It
Oh,
didn't
I've had
feel like
those.
conference food.
I've had those at conferences, and certainly it was an option, but it's not an option that we want to do. And they do such a good job there. I'll even call out Steve and Mario at the Holiday Inn. They do such a wonderful job and make sure that everyone is taken care of. And if someone isn't taken care of, Steve will make sure that they are. And I just love that about the staff there. So, yeah, thank you. I really do appreciate those kind of comments because, yeah, a lot of thought is put into it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. On the love thing, I wanted to say one more thing about an extension of love is the families. There were so many people who brought one of their children with them, adult children, but there was fathers and daughters and mothers and daughters, and there was a woman who brought her nephew, I think, and so we had a lot of younger people that I mean, I'm getting older. I hope we are all getting older because that's good, right? You don't want to not get older. But so having the fresh blood of these youngsters, and they were involved. They were asking questions. They were, talking to strangers and stuff. And so the love extended to family too, which I thought that was a healthy sign for a group like this.
It absolutely is wonderful to see so many families come. Not only moms and daughters, but dads and daughters. And as you pointed out, an attendee and her nephew. It's just amazing to see that happen because many of them were on their own attendees to Macstock in the past and decided to, bring these family members along with them. And then to hear after the fact that they had a really good time and enjoyed themselves and enjoyed the content, is just wonderful. Just wonderful. Dave, you have also been presenting at Macstock since the beginning. Every year is different, and that means our takeaways change. But what was your takeaway from Macstock this year?
I think my takeaway really was the fact that it seemed just so like Allison mentioned, but having all the different families there and seeing new faces was a really good thing to see because, well, I mean, obviously we slowed down a little bit during the pandemic, but this year especially just seemed more open with lots of great new people to see because I love seeing that. I mean, like you said, I've been been presenting since the beginning. And I've seen it all with all the things. The venue, I think, is making a huge difference. And now this is our you just got your second year in with this place and looks like we're going to be in good shape for years to come. Having that experience of having that facility and being able to stay there. And I think that was the big thing too, is not having to travel around. We're at the college and then we have to go somewhere else. And it's great to be able to be in the same place and having the option to be able to go any place else if you so choose. But that was really a good thing about it. And people coming up to you, asking questions after and that's what's great about Macstock, the fact that we have that ability to be able to have these folks come up to us and ask questions afterwards with that. But that was really the biggest takeaways I got, as well as just, I think the presenters were just really great. We had a lot of great topics this year, and we continue to every year since then. But that's what I got out of it for sure.
Yeah. I absolutely love the interaction between presenters and attendees at Macstock, that there are no barriers. There's never intended to be barriers. But I think in so many things in our lives, we expect barriers. And, hey, Brian can relate to this. If you take the sports world and you try to approach a Major League Baseball player at the site and get an autograph or, whatever, you probably have to go through 10 layers of security and maybe pay $50. And, it's like it's just become a cash grab, and you can't get close to players anymore like you used to be able to. But in soccer, in Major League Soccer, for example, it's very easy to get to the players. They're willing to interact with and they understand that their success comes from those who are in attendance and are there supporting them. And Macstock is kind of the same way. The speakers understand and appreciate that their success and with their talks and the later interactions that they have with people are because of the folks who come in attendance. And why would you not? I know some conferences kind of separate the presenters from attendees, but that's weird. I don't like that. Everybody's there as an attendee, and everybody should be there as an attendee. And that includes the speakers. It includes the sponsors.
One more thing I wanted to add, if I could.
Yeah, of course.
The Vision Profiles meetup was just absolutely amazing. And we had so many people coming in and out, and I was really enjoying being able to share my Vision Pro with folks and be able to guide them through seeing and experiencing it and making their decisions whether or not they want one. Marty Gencius and Eric Bolden was doing as well. Plus, we had Tracy and her daughter Mallory, excuse me,
Mallory.
that was there, and she was like a pro. I almost thought she worked at the Apple Store. I was watching as I was in between demos, but to have that kind of interaction with folks after, and that was an after event that we were able to get folks to come down and actually they were interested, because we gave them a nice option to be able to try that. So I think that was one of the great takeaways. I think we got to continue those kind of things into the future too.
Yeah, those type of evening activities, if you will, or in-between session activities are important for the attendees and the presenters and for user groups and for podcasters and anyone who's there to maintain those connections long after their presentation is complete, for sure. Yeah, and Tracy and Mallory, this was their second Macstock.
Yeah,
and look how much more involved they were this year.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
And already, I mean, there were so many new attendees this year. There are some attendees who come and go, as they can make it. July is a tough time of year, and a lot of times there are family vacations planned or other events going on in summer. But we have a really nice group of folks who make it year after year after year. And to see new folks join us is just fantastic.
And another thing too, Katie from Ecamm, she was just amazing. I got to spend a lot of time with her, learning more about Ecamm, and I talked about it on my show about one of the great messages she sent out on LinkedIn, and I won't go through all that, but just to impress somebody like that, and because who goes to so many different conferences all the time, and said she absolutely loved it. This was just the most hands-on, being able to be so comfortable, being able to talk to anybody in the room, and they all wanted to talk to her. And to have that kind of someone like that caliber of person comes into our conference to experience what have known about for the last 10 years, really, what it is, that was really great to see.
It was fantastic to see, and it was also great to hear. They had the Ecamm studios. They had a room dedicated just for demo purposes, and they had what four or five Macs set up in there, Mac Minis.
Yeah.
They had the microphones.
Two on
they
each
had,
station, yeah.
They had the big 55-inch TV to show what to show other people in the room what was going on their screen, things like that. But to have Katie kind of lean into me and say, "Man, I know we're supposed to be in this room, but I really want to hear the talks." And, so she's in there and she's taking notes and asking questions. Oh my gosh, it was great.
That was such a delicate balance to have a sponsor is good. And I was like, oh, they're going to do a talk. Ooh, I don't know. That seems like too much and everything. But it definitely was. And I resonate with what Dave said. But having Doc Rock there, I mean, that raised my fun and interest in things like 20% on the entire show because, he's loud and boisterous and entertaining, but he's also really, really, really smart and inspirational and lifted people up. And it was just having him there was worth whatever amount of money they paid you to come.
Or how much I paid them to come. Is that what you mean?
I was careful to word it that way.
I will say from a personal note too, when Janet, my wife, for those who don't know, when Janet, my wife, brought our daughter into Ecamm Studios and introduced her to Katie and Doc, they just went off on this whole tangent about Japan and Pokemon. And I mean, they welcomed and embraced Maddie being there and spent so much time with her. It meant a lot to me that they were doing that. And, Maddie has such an intense interest in Japan and its culture. And, since Doc lived there for so many years, it was really nice of him to spend that much time with her and interact with her like he did. Yeah. Brian, this is now your third Macstock as an attendee and your second presenting. Do I got that right? I think I got that right.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth one.
Okay.
Fourth attend. Well, and then one in my living room in 2020.
Well, don't count I was going to say, don't count virtual ones. Anyway, I imagine your impressions are quite a bit different than, say, Allison's or Dave's or Chuck's, especially when it comes to your key takeaway from the weekend. But since top 5 takeaways was your suggestion, what would be yours?
Wait, he gets 5?
Yeah,
I only got 1.
5. He can have 5. Well, come on. You sneak a few in there.
Let's see. I do echo what was said before, but in addition, I think one of my big takeaways is the consideration of, I think of the words attend and explore. And by that, I mean being there in the moment, listening to the presenters, watching the presentations, jotting down tons and tons of notes as I'm going through, and really paying attention to what's being said and the demonstrations going on and participating in those demonstrations. I was fully attending, paying attention and taking part in what was being said. Thinking back to like Allison, your presentation on utilizing photos and going deep and learning about the settings and going through and trying different filters and looking at an app that I've had, forever and not having personal experience diving into some of those settings and watching that demonstration and seeing how it works and being able to almost not have that inhibition of saying, I'm not a photo expert. This isn't for me, but rather I can do this and I can enjoy this and I can get some good productivity and good quality products out of it is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And then Dave, listening to your presentation on the different aspects of taking screenshots. And I recently, just over the last month, became a subscriber to SetApp and being able to take a look at not just the built-in software to take pictures or screenshots, but rather to use like CleanShot X and being able to dive deep into some of those tools and what it can do. And the nice thing is I love that comparison chart of seeing what some of the features were between the different pieces of software and knowing, what are the actual differences and what can one product do compared to another. But then that takes from the attending to the exploration, because now that I'm home, now that I've had a few days out of being at Macstock, being able to fire up the computer and play with those tools and really dive in and explore. That's probably my biggest takeaway. And it's one that occurs multiple years, being able to attend and then explore. And it's done in such a way that all the presenters really do a nice job of having that aspect of being able to show you how something is done, explain something, that the mentality of what they're going through in their minds of preparing to use that software, or making it very user friendly to somebody who doesn't necessarily have that expertise initially.
Yeah, I'll just add, my hands-on knowledge of Snagit helped. I'm going to give a shout out to Allison. Thank you for the nice mention in your blog there. That Snagit is a very powerful tool. I've been using it forever and working in my company. So I think I got a lot of comments about that too. So it's good. You learn something every time with anybody that speaks. So thanks, I appreciate that.
Brian, your attend and explore ties in beautifully with the words that I heard on Road to Macstock, and we'll get to Chuck in just a moment there. When Kirsten said, be curious, and I mentioned that in my opening remarks, be curious just really resonated with me. And I would probably insert that in between attend and explore, attend, be curious, explore. And I don't know why it resonated so much with me, but it does feel as if that's what everyone who attends Macstock should be ready to do. Don't just come and be passive. Come and interact. Come and explore. Come and be ready to dive deeper into something when the session has ended, when you've had the opportunity to speak with the presenter, ask your questions. Be ready to dive in deeper and learn more and be curious to learn more. And I just love that phrase that Kirsten said. And we may see it be used at Macstock in the future as well.
Oh, goody! I know the theme now.
Yeah, maybe. But
I say something nice about
really
Brian?
love that. Yeah, of course.
We were, Steve and I were out on a long walk with our dog, and we were talking about something that he needed to do. And I said, remember what Brian said when he was talking about automate but don't take shortcuts? One of the things he gave us was all of the reasons, all of the problems to be solved, as it were, to do automation. And one of them was just to decrease your stress. And so I said, Steve, tap your watch and say, remind me to blah, blah, blah. And then you don't have to think about it anymore. And he was like, oh yeah, I remember Brian saying that. Yeah, that's a great idea. I should do that. And I mean, I tend to do that all the time, but it wasn't something that was natural to him, but it was a takeaway that both of us remembered. And for both of us to pay attention at the same time, that's pretty rare.
That's really cool. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna inject my takeaway here. It ties in beautifully with everything that's already been said, I think. But my takeaway is just how uplifting the Macstock community is. Whether it is coming up to me, unofficial or official volunteer, it didn't matter, coming up to me and saying, how can I help? That happens every single year. But one thing I observed this year was how the Macstock community was very, very quick to gather together and be ready to lift someone up when they weren't necessarily having the best time, or when they just needed a little bit of help. We had attendees there who could use a little bit of an assistance here and there. And it wasn't just one person who helped them. It was multiple people who helped them throughout the weekend. But the community just comes together and the love is shown, and it just means so much to me to see that. It was heartwarming to see it. And that's how it's been since the beginning. And I have a feeling that's how it's going to be for years to come.
If I could make one suggestion for the future, though, Mike, that you could improve on, when people ask you how can they help, let them help you. Stop doing everything yourself. You work too hard.
Oh, I do. Trust me, I do. I let them help if I can. And then other times I don't. Chuck,
Were you going to let Chuck talk at any point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I wanted to wrap up with Chuck because you come at Macstock from a little bit different perspective every year, thanks to Road to Macstock. Not only do you get an intimate firsthand look at each year's presentations, but you also give us a glimpse into who our presenters are and why we want to come and sit in on their talks. Rather than hanging out in the hallway catching up on stuff that we should be leaving behind once we walk through the doors of Macstock. But we want to be there. We want to be there because of Road to Macstock. And I just kind of wanted to get your takeaways from the weekend, not only as an attendee, but as someone who kind of had that preview of what was coming the entire weekend.
So takeaways, I mean, these are my takeaways. And I've got five pages of them. It's exciting. I've more so than ever before. I feel like I definitely learned something from every single presentation, even Allison's, and have notes here for it. So that was the thing. But I think I boil it down for me into two words. The first one is enthusiasm. Just the enthusiasm, not just of the speakers, Mike, for the Road to Macstock, but also the enthusiasm of the attendees. There's nobody that seems to be a passive attendee at Macstock, and especially at this point after this many, we all gather together and have a lot of friends. And friends that we never met is my favorite phrase, because I met some people today that I sincerely hope I get to continue that relationship, even if it's only once a year at Macstock. They're just such quality people. But also motivation. No matter how motivated you are in the day-to-day, you get ground down a little bit, and you lose a little bit of that. Coming to Macstock, I personally am massively motivated to go through these 5 pages of notes and try to implement or do whatever is necessary to strike them off the list, because every single one of them made such an impression on me that I wrote it down. So I feel like those two. Yes, it is a privilege to do the Road to Macstock, because every year you have some new speakers, and so that means every year I get to meet a couple new people. And during the Road to Macstock, let alone seeing them on stage. I love the fact that I can share that with everyone and hopefully give them a sense of who these people are, because the Road to Macstock interviews are not lengthy, but neither are the presentation times. So you're trying to strike that balance of who are you, what are you excited about, and what are you going to show us at Macstock, and then to flip around and see actually how they deliver on that promise. And there's nobody that doesn't deliver on the promise. There's nobody that just phones it in. And I think that's a tribute to the conference you've put together, and the fact that people who speak want to be speaking. They want to be appreciated. I'm sure they would like to be asked back, but more importantly, the idea is that, they want to put that out there. I'm sure that all of us have been to conferences where you did feel like it was just phoned in, that somebody said, you have to go, or, yes, I know they have 20 other priorities, but they have to come to this conference. Nobody did that. Nobody did that. Everybody was prepared. Everybody had something they wanted to share that they felt was important. And I feel like that comes off the stage and back to the audience. Even the folks who maybe don't recognize it or realize it at the time, it really does show. So those are my 2 words that trying to boil down Macstock. If you and please do not ask me for a very favorite presentation. There's no way that I could just start with the first one on Monday morning, Thursday morning, and go through to the last one on Sunday afternoon. And every one of them deserves the attention. So it would be impossible to pick.
I want to pile on that enthusiasm thing, because I was kind of cross with Mike without telling him that he put me in the last time slot. It's a 3-day conference, 5 o'clock on Sunday. Can you pull a worse slot, right? I thought there'd be like 3 people left. It was packed. There were people who did have to leave early because they had to catch flights or something, but virtually everybody was there. It was amazing how many people were there. And the other thing I wanted to fold onto was what Dave talked about with the doing the Vision Pro demos and stuff. There was a demo that I don't even know whether it wasn't officially on the calendar or anything, but a woman named Kaylee was there who rewrites 1980s TV game shows in JavaScript. And she demonstrated for us and allowed us to play basically Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And there were about 30 of us packed into this little conference room. This has to be, if not main stage, like some special event time next year, because it was amazing. So there were like 30 of us. We had 5 on each team. We had six different teams, 6 colors. Get it? 6 colors. And we had, our phones became the controller to play the game. And it was literally a nail biter. I caught myself with my fingernails in my mouth. It was so exciting. It was really fun. But the best part of it was at the very end, after we'd finished playing the game, she brought up the JavaScript and explained it to us. And I got this great photo of like Dave Hamilton, holding his chin, looking at it, wondering about it. And Adam Christensen is riveted to the screen. Charles Goucher is like, wait a minute, what is that? And people said that was like their favorite part. It was really, really fun.
Saying that Macstock was energizing, there is a little bit of a magic to Macstock, at least from my perspective. Some folks know this, some folks don't know this, but the week prior to Macstock Week, I was sick. I was sick as a dog, and there was very little I could do. I was like curled up sometimes, not feeling well that week before. Various things were going on. Janet says it was stress, but the funny thing was, come Monday morning, Macstock Week, I was 100% fine.
Yeah.
The magic of Macstock, the magic of being
Healing.
on for the week, healed me. Okay, I'm kidding.
Healed.
But yeah, no, there's something about it that I do get energized from Macstock, and I'm energized by it already. I'm energized for next year. I'm looking forward to what the possibilities of next year could be. I may not start to actively plan things until later this fall or possibly early next year, but the ideas are already swirling around in my head, and it is a very energizing event. And so I'm glad to hear that other people are energized and excited by it as well, for sure. Yeah.
If you sat through any of those presentations, and look, I understand that not everyone was for everyone. That would be all but impossible to do.
Absolutely.
But if you sat through the majority of those presentations and you didn't get energized, then you need to go see your doctor. There's something really wrong. That's all. It just you cannot sit through Brittany's or Mike Schmidt's. See, I'm going to do it, and I need to stop there just because I will name every single presenter.
Right.
You can't sit through all those and not find something that says, I got to go do that. I got to go learn that. Oh, I can use that in my work, at my church, at my school, at my civic organization, or just for me. Yep. It's just not possible.
What is also not possible is the very next question I was going to ask, if anybody wanted to answer it. I don't know if anybody does. Dave asked this question on his show Thursday night, and I couldn't answer it, and Chuck just said he can't answer it. But does anybody have a favorite presentation from the weekend?
Mine.
Yeah, mine too. No.
Oh, let's talk about that.
No, I already
Allison.
picked it.
Let's talk about that, Allison. Tell everybody what the title of your presentation, the last presentation, not your photos presentation, your last presentation. Tell them what the title of your presentation was.
It was called Chain of Happiness. Boy, I do sound like a flower child, don't I?
And it was about?
It was about how I wanted to encourage people to help others with what they know. And one of my big mantras is that no matter how much you know, there's somebody who knows more than you do. And no matter how little you know, there's somebody who knows less than you do. So I think of it as a chain of happiness that, Chuck teaches me something. I teach that to Dave. Dave teaches it to Brian. Brian teaches it to Mike. And then Mike teaches something to Chuck. And all of a sudden, we're all just everybody's smarter. And I was encouraging people to start getting more participation in user groups. and then from that maybe end up on stage at Macstock speaking someday. And because people don't realize that user groups really like fresh voices. They like somebody they haven't already heard from 200 times. So having somebody come in that hasn't ever done it before can be really good.
And you may have been upset with me for making that the last presentation of the weekend, but
it worked.
When I read that title and when I read the description, I knew it had to be the talk that wrapped up the entire weekend. There was no other place it could be. You put that at the beginning. I didn't see it when you did.
I didn't see it when you did. And then throughout the conference, I was really annoyed because people kept saying the things I was going to say at the end. And by the end, I went, oh, that's perfect, right? Remember, this person said this, and this person said that, and this person said encapsulating it all together. I think it really worked. That was lucky. Or you're smart.
Well, probably lucky.
All the above.
The presentation submitted this year, more so than any other year, worked really, really well to group them together. And when you have those kind of groupings, I think people can maintain a much higher interest level as they go from talk to talk than if you're jumping all over the place, from photos to security to chain of happiness to social media. You know, when people are bouncing around like that, it's hard to maintain a focus. But by grouping them, that focus is intact, and it allows them to absorb content. And then when that little grouping of talks is over, they can refresh and be ready for the next grouping of talks. And it worked, for the most part, pretty well, being able to do that with all the talks this weekend, especially on Saturday. I mean, we had a really nice grouping from 9 in the morning all the way up through, the end of your talk, I guess, would have been the wrap up of that. And even Chris's talk you could kind of consider that part of that grouping. But to be able to wrap up the weekend with your Chain of Happiness talk was just the icing on the cake, Allison, and that's why you're there. Yeah.
So I want to address that just for a second, because when Allison talked about that on the road to Macstock, I thought, oh boy, okay, this sounds, Allison, I'll use your phrase, a little flower child.
Touchy-feely.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, all right, that'll be a nice sentiment, and it's very consistent with your standard message. But I wasn't sure about a session on it. And
me neither.
Yeah, and I tell you, you killed it. You absolutely killed it, and you killed it as much for your presentation as for the placement in the schedule. So Mike gets at least partial credit for having your talk be a success, because it was the perfect thing for us to leave on, as opposed to even start out on. I don't even think it would have been that powerful if you had started out with the Macstock with it. I think to end it up with that was just a fantastic motivational, take it and run message to go.
I was personally surprised.
I'll add something too. I know you and I, Allison and I, were a little worried that we were going to overlap each other, because I know how much you love screenshots, and I was glad you learned something, because I always wonder every year if you're going to learn something. And it seems like every year I've done, you've learned something from me, which is great. But I came up to you afterwards, and I know, and you know that I think we complemented each other really wonderfully. I mean, you got some of the stuff that I had, and then you were able to bring it into what you were trying to do on the same topic, and we complemented each other nicely.
Yeah, that worked.
So other than Allison's, did anybody have a favorite presentation?
I like others. I can't mention one because they were all so good in their unique ways. Everyone, the big thing is besides just the content, the think throughs, it's almost like looking through the eyes when you're looking at a presentation of their preparations and how they plan through and how they think through something. It's so unique to every presenter too. Just being able to see through their presentation how they started, how they moved forward, how they changed to different topics within their presentation. We even had a presenter who took the time to do think through planning and that type of thing too, which and made that a public aspect, and that was really neat too. So all of those types of things, I think, really shine through all the presentations.
Yeah.
It's a little hard for me to really pick, giving one of all of them that were out there. I think notably, I'll kind of mention two. Honestly, if I'll give you that I really liked. I thought Jill McKinley was just knocked it out of the park. That was a great presentation. It got me to think more about health and all the things that she talked about and what she's done in her accomplishments by using all those tools. Then I want to go to Marty and Will. I thought that was just a blast. And for Marty's generosity of buying all those little gifts and being able to give them, I mean, it was even a nice touch to it, and including the banana and the the W flag for the Cubs, the Chicago Cubs. So, but it's so hard to pick any one of those. But I'm kind of picking those two out. Just I think that those were ones that complemented a little bit what their intent was, and both did a great job.
Real quick here, as fun as this was, and we need to get Allison back on, unfortunately, she does need to head out. So before we wrap up the show, we want to say goodbye to Allison. I do have one question for you, though, Allison, and maybe you can answer this quickly. This might be a very, very quick answer because it's the next question I was going to ask everybody. But from the perspective of someone who didn't attend but might want to attend in the future, what do you think they would want to know? What do you think would help encourage someone to attend Macstock in the future?
Well, I sort of feel like everything we've been talking about is what that would be, is how much we learned and how we made new friends and how great it is to be in a room full of people who are completely different, varied lives, and yet we have one major thing in common, and that's the love of the Apple products and how we use them, and to be with our own kind, if you will, that, nobody's going to sneer at you if you go, hey, yeah, have you seen this really cool app I have on my iPhone, while you're talking at lunch, that's not, yeah, exactly. Everybody loves that. They all lean forward instead of like looking at their watch, trying to get away from you. I was going to give a plug for the Macstock 9 Digital Pass, which if you poke around enough on the Macstock Conference and Expo website, you can find the Digital Pass. So you can buy a pass to see the sessions, and you'll get a lot out of the sessions for sure. But it's not the same as being there with humans that you can, just being with humans, a lot of us are introverts. We sit alone in our homes, this is once a year, Steve and I get out to go somewhere. So I think that's another good way. And you can buy the swag that Mike gave us. I mean, you can buy the shirts, you can buy mugs, you can buy a lot of different things on the store there. So buy those for your nerd friends, and that way everybody can enjoy the fun. Here's why you should come. I would like to meet you.
That's awesome. Yep.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
That's awesome thing. That's amazing. Well, Allison, I know you need to get going. Why don't you tell folks where they can find you, and we'll let you get on with your weekend.
All right. Well, like I like to always say on my show, everything good starts with podfeet.com, PODFEET.com, where you can find the NosillaCast, my 20-year flagship show, but also Programming by Stealth with Bart Bouchatz, Taming the Terminal, learning how to use the terminal on the Mac, and Chit Chat Across the Pond, which is a conversation podcast about nerd things, and most often has Adam Angst of Tidbits on it. So everything good starts with podfeet.com. Thanks for having me, Mike. This was a lot of fun. And bye, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
We will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for joining us, Allison, and we'll see you soon.
Hugs, Chuck. Here's a hug.
Oh, boy.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Allison.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, let me do this. I'm just gonna do this. Boom, and bump, bump. Oh, it's locked. I got to unlock the scene. Okay, then I can do it. All right, here we go. Let's do that and that. There we go. All right, there's our panel. Cool. Okay, so let's go ahead and throw that question out to the rest of you. From the perspective of someone who didn't attend but might want to attend in the future, what would they want to know, or what could help convince them to attend Macstock in the future?
I guess I'll start. I think we really should emphasize the fact of how how the Macstock is easy to talk to people, because a lot of people think conferences are just you go into a conference like the old Mac World days when you have 10,000 plus people. You're lucky to be able to talk to a few of those people, and I think we should emphasize how great that is of us all being approachable. So many people want to talk to you, and emphasize that's what's great about Macstock, is that community feeling and being able to do that with all the attendees that come to Macstock.
Anyone else?
Yeah, if I could, I would think too, in addition to what David said, and I agree with the aspect of how approachable everybody is. I'm thinking to and I agree too with the Allison's mentioning of how important you can learn so much from the digital pass and get those great talks, the whole, attend and explore and being curious. That all plays a huge part in the watching the presentations and hearing them and participating. But one aspect for somebody who might be on the fence, who's not quite sure, is the care taken for the official and unofficial aspects to the events that take place outside of the scope of the presentations themselves. I'm thinking initially to, I believe it was a Friday evening when Ecamm had the sponsored dessert social.
Sweet
And
Connections.
that was
Yeah.
being sweet connections, exactly. And being able to connect with people in a very low key setting. You have the presenters, there. You have attendees there. You have people there in a very low key setting, being able to talk to one another and just kind of figure out some new things and share and learn. I remember I was sitting next to Eric Bolden, and he takes amazing photography.
Yeah,
And he took the time he's braver than I am on the betas, and I usually wait a while, but he was sharing on the beta on the iPad, like the photography and being able to I'm trying to remember the term that Apple uses, but where they're able to make those 3D spatial effects on the photographs. And that's something that's really neat. Again, something like the another evening event with the Vision Pro demonstrations, being able to see that and experience that. Yes, we can all go to YouTube, we can all take a look at videos, we can all read articles on things, but the experiential aspects that take place is something that really, I think, would drive somebody who hasn't attended yet to be able to maybe push them into saying, yeah, it's worth attending instead of just getting the digital pass, which on its own is really neat too.
And I should probably point out things like that aren't necessarily part of the digital pass. The digital pass is intended to be the workshops and the presentations. Mac Geek Gab, that's Dave's own thing. He distributes that through the Mac Geek Gab channel. The game night on Sunday, that was never recorded. It was just something that the folks who were in attendance got to experience, like you said. And certainly Mac Voices Live is going to go out on the Mac Voices channel. It's not going to be part of the digital pass. So you have to kind of seek out some of these things if you didn't get to experience them in the first place. But I try to make the digital pass as experiential as possible, by including any little extra footage that might make it in between the talks, or just something fun that happened on stage or something like that. But it doesn't always work out. So very often it's just the talks, and those in between things that you're referring to, Brian, just you don't get that. You don't get that unless you come in person. So yeah, I think that's absolutely a fantastic reason to come out. And I mean, it is a full weekend. Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, from Macstock may have been Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but we were going out to dinner with folks on Thursday. We were enjoying each other's company on Monday. In fact, in some cases, as late as Tuesday, there were still people in town, who are part of Macstock Weekend. So it's really a full weekend. I mean, we were up until 3:30 in the morning Sunday night, just enjoying each other's company. And again, you can't experience that in any way Okay, not everybody was up until 3:30. There was a small group of us, but you don't get to experience that unless you were there in person, and I think that's a great reason to attend. Chuck, did you have anything to add to it?
Yeah, just a couple things. First of all, Macstock just keeps on giving because I'm sitting here with my notebook open to show you how many notes I took. I'm still taking notes from this discussion. It's like, that's a great idea. Oh, I forgot about that. So, that's the way it is. I might offer a couple perspectives. First, the perspective of value. Um, Look, let's just face it, it costs money to attend Macstock. And so for any conference that I look at, I'm trying to figure out the budget versus what I'm going to get out of it. And Macstock delivers, 20, 30, 40, 50 times the value if you're just looking for it. Invest in the digital pass because that'll give you a great idea of the quality of the both the presenters and the presentations. I mean, Allison said that right away, and it's like, yeah, that's maybe the best sales pitch you can get. The other thing, though, I might suggest is that if someone is interested, go and check out for the podcasters, and because that was everybody has a podcast or a blog, it seems that we're up on the stage. Go check out some of their content and see if you think it resonates with you. I feel like it has to because if you're a Mac user, it's going to. But I think maybe that's a good way to do it too. The last thing, Mike, this might even be a suggestion for you, and you hereby have my permission. But I've just released two different episodes of a wrap up for Macstock on my show, and I know David's done one on his. There was sort of an impromptu one the other day on the British Tech Network. Gather all those up and let people hear the enthusiasm that we as both presenters.
Oh, man. All right. Ah, that was definitely something here. All right. Man, I don't even know where we were. I'm so sorry. So allegedly we're live again.
Allegedly.
Well, it asked, as soon as internet came back, it said, "Do you want to resume the broadcast?" I'm like, "Sure." So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's live.
I just refreshed YouTube and it still backs up to over an hour. So I think we're good.
All right. Well, for our viewer there, thank you for your patience. Internet took a I'll use a polite word. Internet decided not to keep working. Where were we, gentlemen? I think Chuck was talking. I'm sorry. You were talking about perspective of someone who didn't attend but might want to attend in the future. Go.
Yeah, and I'm not sure you'll be editing this, I'm sure, back together. So, so I'll just sort of do the wrap up. But it's if you combine the value factor with the culture factor, I feel like it's 50 to 100 times worth that you're going to want to come. And so I think I said it before. A lot of conferences don't deliver on that. Macstock just sort of oozes that whole thing, and oozes is not a word you want to use maybe to promote Macstock, Mike.
Well,
but if the shoe fits. But yeah, it's just when we actually took the break, I sometimes get a little concerned that maybe we're almost too enthusiastic because people have to think that you must have paid us to be this positive, and that's not it. It really is that everybody has that experience that you just I can't wait for next year already, and I just got home.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much. No, and trust me, I can't afford to pay anybody to say nice things about Macstock. This is all from the heart. Thank you, everyone. That was great. Brian, there was one other note that you made when we were sitting there eating our pizzas last Monday night, and I believe you wanted to talk about briefly the aspects of traveling to Macstock.
Yeah, I just to bring that up, I think the location of Macstock is a perfect area to be able to travel to. And so kind of going along with the question from before, what might motivate somebody who hasn't yet attended Macstock in person? At least from my perspective, I'm coming from Arizona and being able to fly into O'Hare Airport to easily be able to, through public transportation, be able to get from the airport right up to the 2 miles out from the hotel, and then being able to using the train system, and then being able to connect very easily, if needed, with things like Uber and Lyft, be able to get you just that last 2 miles. I know I tease sometimes that last bit, if I can walk that last bit too, except for the crosswalks at the very,
Yeah.
very end.
Yeah.
But that being said, the other great thing I think that brings with the whole Macstock community is the people who reach out to one another too, who are also flying in on the same day, and traveling along that same time, and being able to be willing to say, hey, I'm already renting a car. Why don't you go ahead and just come along with me? Those aspects are always there too. So from a traveling aspect, for people who might be on the fence about saying, well, if they look geographically and seeing that it's a little further out from the city itself, that's not an issue whatsoever. It hasn't been with me in any of my times that I've been out there, and that's traveling from, from Arizona.
And I think the new location, the Alara Conference Center, makes all the difference in the world, because now, unlike in past years where we had hotels in one city and the conference center in another city and restaurants that we're going to at night and yet a third one, everything's in one place. And everything, you come in, like you said, it's very easy to get there. For those who know, it's I-90 to Illinois 31, boom, and you're at the hotel. I mean, it's really not that far off the interstate, really. But once you're there for the weekend, unless you opt to go out at some point. And there were plenty of folks, including myself, who went out to dinner in Woodstock versus in Crystal Lake, where the conference center is. All these towns are right next to each other, very easy to get to if you have, like you said, you could take an Uber, but more than likely, you're going to say, hey, anybody else interested in going out to dinner? And folks are going to say yes. And, oh, by the way, I've got a car. Let's go. And it really does make the experience of staying there that much easier when everyone is willing to lend a hand, just like we talked about. That Macstock community is very strong, and even if you are new to the community, you're going to be a very welcome member of it before the first day is over.
Well, and even once you get there too, you mentioned a couple members of the hotel and convention center staff who've been so helpful and willing to assist in every way. And I think that extends to the staff more than just those who are in the aspect. I think we were talking about lunch at the time, but through the check-in process, and if there's anything anybody needs, it's a really great staff that I've interacted with there.
Yeah, I did have had a really nice conversation with one staff member there, and she said the reason she stays there is because of all the other employees and how helpful everyone is to her to help her get her job done. She wants to be there to help them get their job done and to make the experience of staying a great one for their guests. So, yeah, I think everyone there really seems to enjoy what they're doing and want to help whenever and however they can, for sure.
I'll give a real quick story. I forgot my wallet at home. And
Oh,
of
no.
course, everybody knows I'm local. So I spoke to the night manager, Natasha, and she was very welcoming to say, I happen to have my driver's license on my phone. And of course, the credit card I was using, it was in an Apple Wallet. And she was very accommodating, giving an exception, because she knew right away. She looked up my town and, oh yeah, that's quite a while to drive back and then come back again. So, so very, very great staff there. I will definitely say that for a fact.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I want to echo it too. The interactions I had with the staff were absolutely terrific. They exhibited a sense of humor. along with just the desire to get you anything you needed or wanted. So I would tell anybody coming to that area that if you haven't booked somewhere else or need someplace to stay,
Yeah.
it's a place you really need to look at.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I really love this wrap up. I thought this was a great way to kind of cap off the week for me. You know, it's always really busy at the beginning of the week when Macstock wraps up. And then, of course, I'm playing catch up with client work and things like that. So to be able to sit down with friends and talk about Macstock and kind of reflect on the weekend is just a joy for me. So thank you all for being here. Anything else that anyone would like to add before we wrap up the episode?
You know, just to also celebrate the hard work of the volunteers and
Yes.
the behind the scenes folks, the folks who help, you know, the recordings and the MC work and the volunteer, the swag table, and awesome.
Yeah.
Everything is just so
They were-
well put together.
They're
and,
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Brian Henson doing the MC work, Roger Harmon for doing the production desk work. Effectively, he serves as the director for what will become the digital pass, but also for what folks see on the projectors during the weekend. That's him. That's him making sure that people get to see the slides, get to see the presenter, and anything else that he decides to put up there. And of course, Cindy Rotz for taking care of the registration desk and the merch sales table all weekend long. My wife Janet, as I said in my closing remarks, who puts more work into Macstock weekend alone than I could ever imagine putting into it. She's just been wonderful support for Macstock year after year. My daughter, my dad, who put so much into it every year because he loves to do it. He loves to be there and interact with people and meet new people and learn from them. So and then the ad hoc volunteers, as I mentioned before, there's always someone willing to say, "How can I help?" and lending that help to make the weekend a success for everyone else who's there. So yes, thank you to all the volunteers. I don't think I missed anybody. Did I get everybody? I think I got everybody there. But
You did forget one, Mike.
who was that? You?
That's you.
No.
That's you. That's you. Thank you for the vision to put the conference together, the dedication to keep putting it together, so that you can accept all these kudos from us, because without you, Macstock would not exist. So thank you for everything you do throughout the year to give us that amazing weekend.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I second that.
But
Yeah, agreed.
speaking of putting it together, do you guys have a couple minutes for some trivia? I teased trivia at the beginning. Do you want some trivia?
Sure.
Macstock trivia?
Sure.
Let's do it.
All right. So some of these numbers I couldn't believe when I saw them, but I had mentioned at the beginning that I didn't think one person on the panel would know the true origins of Macstock, why it came about, why the idea got stuck in this little noggin of mine, and then where and when the first kind of trial balloon of Macstock occurred. Anybody know the answer to that? Dave might.
I think I do. You just had the ideas, and you and Barry Falk were looking to put something together. They wanted to bring back Macworld because Macworld had ended. And it had been a number of years, but you had a plan for for 4 years before it happened in 2015, and that's I think what the origins of it. I didn't get into too much detail of it. Probably there's more I can remember, but that's what you told me the story was. And then you had it at the McHenry County College in Crystal Lake, and that was the first Macstock. And I went back and watched my first presentation. You have it open for free on the YouTube, and I have it downloaded too. But I was looking back, like I looked at myself, it's like, God, was that me? I guess I did a pretty good job. and then of course I always mentioned the afternoon session when you had the meeting with all the presenters, and me not. I'm the outsider, not a podcaster, and look where I am now. So,
Yeah.
So that's I have that vividly in my memory and I have to tell you, to Mike, and I am truly grateful to be part of Macstock and that you've given me the opportunity for every single one of them. And I hope to keep that going, being a presenter. I'm very proud of doing it every year. When I tell people what I'm doing, they always, oh, that sounds great. And, they hear those kinds of things. But yeah, I thank you and being a good friend too, for allowing me to be able to be a presenter every year. I really, really love it.
Well, that was an amazing answer, Dave. But
I'm trying to miss something though.
I will tell you that the initial idea for Macstock was written down in a Pages document in 2009. That was the very first year.
I had the year in my mind, 2009. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
2009 was the very first year.
6 years later.
And in fact, I registered the very first Macstock related domain name, which is macstockexpo.com. Not Macstock Conference and Expo, macstockexpo.com. I registered in November 2009 and sat on it for years until I could figure out what the heck to do with it. But the very first notes I took on Macstock were taken in 2009. The intention of it was to kind of be a meetup for Mac Guys only. Macstock would not exist if not for this podcast. So thank you to all the listeners of For Mac Guys Only for being so supportive those early years and putting that idea in my head that maybe we could do a meetup. And here's another bit of trivia. One of the very first names I put down in that Pages document as a potential presenter at Macstock is Chuck Joyner. So I lived the dream when Chuck agreed to come and speak at the very first Macstock in June 2015. Now, the very first kind of trial balloon for Macstock was not 2015. That was the first official Macstock, but the first trial balloon for Macstock was in October 2012. It was not billed as Macstock, but it was kind of an idea or kind of something I was trying to see if the concept of a Macstock would work. And it was a meetup held at my office in Woodstock. And the attendees were Gary Gazmaz, Malpas, Eric Erickson, Barry Folk, Brian Henson, and to my great surprise, all the way, and I should point out, Gaz joined via Skype. He wasn't there in person. But all the way from St. Louis, for Mac Guys Only listener, Alan joined us. He drove all the way up to Woodstock just to join us for that very first meetup, which was amazing that he did. And we did that in our office. We recorded a live episode of For Mac Guys Only, and that is out there on the For Mac Guys Only website, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes just because it's a little fun, fun bit of history.
Yeah.
Wow.
Little fun bit of history. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, next bit of trivia. See if you guys get the answer to that. I have a whole bag of key fobs for AirTags right here. So you guys can win an AirTag key fob if you get these right. How many domain names did I register for Macstock in 2015? I had one. Remember, I registered one in 2009, and that was the one and only domain name I had. But how many domain names did I register in 2015 for Macstock?
If I could say, you definitely have Macstock Expo and Macstock Conference and Expo. That's 2. Then you have Macstock2015.com. That's 3. Yeah. And then did you start registering every year after that? I don't know. Did you do 2016, 2017, 2018?
Optimistically, yeah.
I did register up through 2020 at that time.
2020.
And I registered 11 domain names in 2015 for Macstock, which leads to the final trivia question for anyone who's interested. How many total domain names do I have that are Macstock related, that have Macstock in the name somewhere?
This is all together or current?
All together, all the domain names that I currently have registered that in some way, shape, or form have the word Macstock in the domain name.
I'm going to guess 21, 22, 21.
Okay.
Say 15.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was going to say 15 too.
All right. The answer is 39.
Oh,
39.
Wow.
39 domain names that are all in some way related to Macstock. Some of them ideas that may see the light of day in the future. So you'll just have to stick around and find out.
yes.
So that's all the trivia
Cool.
questions I have. Anybody have a trivia question about Macstock to see if you can stump the mic? It's okay if you don't.
I'm blank.
I'm terrible on trivia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Come up with something that isn't obvious.
Yeah. What am I answering, but trying to create one? No, that's tough.
I know. I couldn't believe when I saw I had 39 domain names. I'm like, what the heck? What am I doing
Yeah,
with all those?
Your registrar loves you.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
they do. They do. They love it when I have to renew those every year too.
I'm sure.
So, with that said, did you attend Macstock this year? I would love to hear your experiences. What was your takeaway? What were your favorite presentations? Or what would you say to someone who has never been before to convince them to give Macstock a try? Drop me a line, mike@formaccguysonly.com or mike@macstockconference.com, or leave a comment in the show notes for this episode, and we will maybe share your comments here on the show. And I think that will do it for this episode of For Mac Guys Only. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Remember, as I just said, I do love to get your letters. So if you have any comments about the show, a tip to share, a software or hardware problem with your Mac, be sure to leave your favorites in the comments of this week's show notes found at formaccguysonly.com, or drop me a line, mike@formaccguysonly.com. And do be sure to subscribe to the show's YouTube channel at youtube.com/FMEOTV and click that little notification bell so you can find out when we are going live. You can join the chat room and you can catch all the behind the scenes stuff that doesn't make the final cut of the show, like internet going out right in the middle of a live stream. Let's go around the room here and you guys can tell us where we can find you. Dave, where are the best places for folks to get a hold of you or to listen to your shows?
Yes. You can find me at In Touch with iOS at intouchwithios.com. Mike was just on the show. We did a Macstock recap as well, and we'll be promoting the digital passes going forward. So go grab your digital pass. YouTube channel is youtube.com/intouchwithios. My Mac Voices live every Tuesday with Chuck and the gang, and my shows are recorded live on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, as well as occasionally I'm on the Mac show on the British Tech Network. But and you can find me on social media. I'm usually at Mastodon and Blue Sky at DaveG65. What a great show, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dave. And Brian, how can folks get a hold of you?
Yeah, thank you again so much for having me. I appreciate it. Best way to get a hold of me is via my website, brian8944.com. You can find me frequently as a panelist on Mac Voices Live on Tuesday evenings. In addition to that, I've been trying a new podcast, and I invite you to subscribe and check it out. It's On the Desk of Brian. And you can find that on your different podcatcher services.
Very cool. And I think you are now, what, 3 episodes in? 4 episodes? How many you have in the books?
Slightly more. I've let's see, number 5 is out, and number
wow.
6 is coming out soon. So
very
it comes
cool.
out every 2 weeks. So yeah.
Excellent. And Chuck, what is the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
The best place to see everything is macvoices.com. And I'm on the socials is at Chuck Joyner. So you can reach me on pretty much all the major ones and several of the minor ones as well. We do the live shows Dave mentioned on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. We'd love to have you connect with us there in the chat room. Mike, one more time, thank you so much for doing this wrap up as well as for Macstock itself.
Oh, thanks so much, Chuck. And thanks, Dave. And thanks, Brian, as well. And Allison, of course, who was with us earlier. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. And again, thanks to Dave, Allison, Brian, and Chuck for joining me this episode. Stay subscribed, and we'll talk to you next time. And with that, I am going to throw up the end card. We're going to say goodbye to the live stream, and I'll be right back in just a moment. Okay, guys?
Okay.
All right. Bye, everyone.